Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Your Overseas Home. My name is Christopher Nye. I'm Senior Editor at Your Overseas Home and Spain Property Guides. And today I will be discussing the 3 simple steps to buying your dream home in Spain. I have with me 3 experts who have seen it, done it, helped people do it hundreds of times. We're going to start off with by chatting with an overseas payment specialist, Danny from Smart Currency Exchange, to talk about the currency and payment element, and also, of course, the setting your budget element. And then we're going to chat with an estate agent, Shirin Sharifi from the Spanish estate agent, to take us through the finding a property section. And then we're going to turn to a lawyer, Emma Belgum from JLCA, to explain the buying process. 3 simple steps, but carrying with them your dream to buy in Spain. We've got an hour, and for those listening live, plenty of opportunity to put your questions to the speakers, so do just type them into the box on the right hand side. We will be sending out the contact details of our 3 experts afterwards, so you can get in touch with them directly and discuss your issues or your questions. And you can watch this again when we send you a link to rewatch it or send it to friends, or you could just watch it on the Your Overseas Home website. Okay, enough of me, and over to the first of our experts, Danny Cook from Smart Currency Exchange. Smart is the headline sponsor of today's webinar, so thank you for paying for it and everything. Danny's been working in foreign exchange for quite a few years now and has helped lots of buyers. So tell us all about you and what you can do for buyers, and then I'm going to come back with you with a few questions, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Danny. So I work at Smart Currency Exchange as an account manager on the trading desk. Have done so for around 3 years now. So Smart, we've been around since 2004. We've helped around 40,000 people in that time move currency overseas for property purchases. Specifically, those are our kind of niche transaction. That's what we deal with most of the time when we're speaking to clients. The main aim of our service is to help people manage the risk that they'll be exposed to when moving currency overseas. Currency market, of course, can be a very, very volatile place. A lot of up and down movements all the time. So my main aim as an account manager is to help the clients, of course, get the money from A to B, but moreover, manage the risk that will come in relation to that. When you're moving such a large sum of money overseas, what you don't want to be in a position is where the currency markets have moved against you at the point of transaction, all of a sudden, potentially having to fork up extra funds to kind of afford your purchase. So that's where we come in, really, is to help clients very carefully negotiate that process. I'll be in touch with clients from a very, very early stage in the process, and we'll be touching base every few weeks or every month or so to make sure that the plans are going to plan, really, and also just to make sure that we do have a plan in place to manage any risk that's going to be coming over the weeks and months. So yeah, that's kind of what we're here to do. Spain, a lot of people we speak to buying in Spain, and that's pretty much what we're here to help with.
Okay, great. So tell me basically from the start, when do I call you? How do we start off the process?
So it can start very early, really. I speak to clients who are sometimes up to a year away from purchasing. The first step is to open a free non-committal account with us, which you would do with our onboarding team. After that, once your account's open, maybe pass to one of the account managers, that being myself or one of my other colleagues on the trading desk, and then we take it from there. Really, we devise a sort of structured plan moving forward in terms of when we're going to be speaking to each other, what kind of budgets you're talking about, what your time frame is when you're going on trips, and just trying to make sure we've got a very structured plan in place to manage the risk for you. But yeah, the first step would be opening an account with our onboarding team.
Sorry, I heard the word risk. So what's the risk within currency exchange?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've got my chart here in front of me, really. If you're talking over currency markets, are obviously constantly moving. When you're talking about a large sum of money, this creates a good degree of risk. And if you're just talking about a holiday, a couple £1,000, there's not going to be much risk associated with that. When you're talking about potentially up to 100, £200,000, that risk is really exacerbated because of the larger volume. So just using the last 6 months, an example, we've seen swings between the pound and the euro of around about sort of 10%, just over 10% really. So you can do the math. You talk about a £200,000 budget, 10%, 10% swing. That's about £20,000 worth of risk. So you can see there really what we're trying to help clients with is not be exposed to that kind of risk, and make sure that at the end of the day they kind of know then what the property is going to cost them in pounds as well as euros. When you're buying overseas, it's a totally different kettle of fish to buying here in the UK. You're buying a property in a different currency, so you know what the property is going to cost you in euros often, but of course what you don't know is what that will be costing you in pounds, because the exchange rate swings have a big part to play in that. So that's really where you need an expert like us to be there, sort of holding your hand through the process, making sure you're abreast of the movements, making sure you're fully aware of what your options are to mitigate the risk. But yeah, at the moment, very volatile, these currency markets. There's obviously been in the news recently with what happened with the Liz Truss Premiership and other situations. So with that sort of degree of movement, it can create a lot of financial risk. And as I say, just over the last few months, 10% swing between the pound and the euro is very volatile.
Okay, so if you're buying over the last couple of months a €200,000 property, then you wouldn't. It could have moved by sort of 20,000 or so. I see. And how would you sort that problem out?
Yeah, so obviously, we devised a plan kind of early in terms of how we're going to try and manage that. So one particular product we have that a lot of my clients like is a forward contract. So you may well have already done some research upon that if you've been looking to buy overseas for a while. It might well be a term that you're already familiar with, but it's a very sort of popular tool that we have here for clients to mitigate risk. It allows you to fix an exchange rate for any time up to a year. Every client's different. People may want to lock their rate in at different times of the process, maybe just when you've had an offer accepted and you kind of know things are proceeding. But generally the way we mitigate that is with a forward contract. You can do that on your whole budget and get a full forward contract locked in for your whole purchase amount. You could potentially just lock in half of your budget and have a sort of what we call a partial hedge in place. So there's various different options to kind of look at it, and that's what we're here to help with, is devise a tailored plan to you to make sure that your finances are being dealt with.
Okay, brilliant, really helpful. I'm going to come to the others in a second, but just I suppose the big question one might ask is why you are not either the bank or that I've been banking with for the last 20 years. If I know it's not open in my high street anymore, but presumably there's somewhere, or indeed why not go with an app, one of those kind of.
Yeah, so two different things I'd say. With a bank, there's two big ones. The first one is the price, so purely the rate of exchange. Banks, you're often getting what's called a tourist rate of exchange, which is going to be several percentage points away from where the actual market is sat. By coming through a specialist broker such as ourselves, you'll be getting a much more competitive rate of exchange, what we call a commercial rate. So it can often save you thousands of pounds if you're getting a rate that's 2 or 3% better than what you may get for a high street bank. And the second one is, of course, the service that you're going to get. You get a dedicated account manager to speak to on the phone about your plans and to help you again to sort of manage the risk. And of course, with regards to the account manager service as well, it's just purely from a customer service perspective. Banks often at the moment, if you try and get hold of them on the phone, you could be sat in long waiting times for sort of actually get on the phone to someone, speak to them. And we're very readily available on the phones here. If you can't get through to your account manager, there will be someone else on the trading desk available to speak to answer your query. So customer service is something we really pride ourselves on. So I'd say compared to the bank, it's two main factors: is the rate of exchange that you're going to get, which is going to be much more preferential, and the level of service that you're going to get as well is going to be much better than just going down to the bank and doing it like that. Compared to something like Revolut, again, with something like Revolut or these other apps we have, Wise and things like that these days, again, the onus is all on you to kind of handle your own exchange. So you're going to be sort of just ultimately leaving that until the day to actually do your transfers, which again, you don't know where the currency market's going to be by the time you actually have to sort of pay the balance for a property purchase in Spain. You can put an offer in on a property and think, right, it's currently costing me this in pounds because of where the rate is. If you then leave until 2 months before you're actually doing the transfer to pay the balance, if the market swings against you, you could have unforeseen costs to pay for due to a negative currency movement. So again, with us, compared to services like Revolut, you're getting a sort of tailored strategy to hopefully save you as much money as possible and ensure that, of course, you're basically going to have a plan in place to manage any currency swings that may occur.
Okay, lovely. Last question for now. How do we know that you're are you as safe as a bank? How do we know that? Because
absolutely.
it's
It's a question.
hundreds of thousands of pounds, possibly my life savings. I don't want to just trust it to anyone, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a perfectly reasonable concern that again all of my clients have, and something that we're very, very, very cautious of, I suppose. So essentially, we're a fully FCA regulated company. So what that entails is when your funds are sent to us, they're actually never held in one of our operating accounts. They're held in totally segregated bank accounts that are totally ring fenced and by the FCA essentially. So what that means is, if the worst thing were to happen to us while we're sort of holding your funds, you essentially get all that money back. It isn't 100% insured by the FCA. So that's essentially what it entails. If you do an exchange for us, totally segregated, ring-fenced accounts, fully FCA regulated. The FCA, insures all the financial companies here in the UK. So there's, your funds are pretty much protected and insured at all times. And even if the worst were to happen to us, which we're obviously very confident it won't, we've been around since 2004 now, so one of the longer running names in foreign exchange. You are fully protected at all times.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll come back to you shortly, but it'd be nice to bring in our next expert. So we've done like the first step, which is discussing with a currency company the kind of budget that you might have, and now we are looking at properties. We know what we've got to spend, and we're coming out to see Shirin. So Shirin, tell us a bit about yourself and the Spanish estate agent.
Sure, yeah. Welcome, everybody. Lovely to be here speaking to you all. My name is Shirin Sharifi. Yes, I'm the sales director at the Spanish estate agent. We are an agency that's been open down here for quite a while. I myself have over 24 years worth of real estate experience on the Costa del Sol, and we basically have an office, but we cover the area between Malaga and Gibraltar and the inland areas as well. We have every type of property that you can imagine, from 2-bedroom apartments up to villas, fincas, farms, land, all that kind of equestrian properties. We have many languages spoken in the office. I speak 5 languages myself, and we have Scandinavian speakers and German speakers, all many of the languages covered in the office. We act as a property finder. As I said, we have access to every single property that's for sale on the coast, but I'll explain that a little bit later. And we're here to help you find your dream home, basically.
Fantastic. Now, of course, when one is buying a place in Spain, it's not about if it's going to make you X amount in the next 3 months or something. It's really about enjoying it. But all the same, what is happening with prices there? Are we able to make offers, or are they being snapped up quickly?
No, the market is very, very strong at the moment. Of course, we still, if there is an offer to be made, we will definitely find the history and the reasons for selling, and find out what the story is behind the sale, and see if there are offers to be made. Sometimes we have a vendor that's fixed on price, will not negotiate at all on price, and others in different circumstances may very well negotiate on price. When a good property in a good area at a decent price, it does get snapped up very quickly. Yeah, we are finding that prices are, I wouldn't say they're shooting up because it's a very safe market at the moment, but good properties are selling very, very quickly. Yeah, I would say.
Okay. So my first step when it comes to actually buying a property, I guess, is to contact you. When should we be contacting you? Is it when we have our funds in place, or at an earlier phase when we're just deciding?
No, I mean, we're here to give as much information as possible. We're not, it's not like England where it's the first home purchase. This is a very, very different purchase completely, and we are here to give as much information as possible, talk about lifestyle, talk about 50% of it is the property itself, but the rest of it is, what are you going to do when you're here? What do you enjoy doing? What what's around the property, the area that you're in. And we try to listen, really important word for me, we try to listen to the clients as much as possible. And we then talk them through the different areas, what they have to offer. So I would say, pretty much as early as possible, really. Of course, it would be lovely if funds are in place, but sometimes people don't know where to best find their funds either. And sometimes we can help them by introducing them to banks over here, to mortgage brokers over here, or they may decide that the funds are, it's more economic for them to find the funds in the UK. We when we are showing properties, by that time, yes, people have normally had their funds put in place. There's no point in going to a sweetie shop and not having the funds to buy. But I would say contact me as early as possible. We're here to give advice and so on. But by the time we're viewing properties together physically, then normally people have got their funds in place. Yeah.
Okay, so when coming out to Spain, what do I have to have in terms of paperwork?
Well, if you're coming out and we find a property that you like, if I've done my job properly, we find the right property, you will need your passport, because we'll be making a trip to the lawyer with Emma. The lawyer will want to do a power of attorney so that they can do all the conveyancing work for you, apply for your NIE numbers, that sort of thing. If you're looking to get finance in Spain, obviously, then the banks will have a whole list of documents that they will require just around your finances and so on, which I have a list which I can give to everybody if they need. So basically, passport.
Okay, yes. When is a good time to come out on a viewing trip?
Monday to Friday. Well, the summer's a funny one, because obviously the weather's great and you're going to see it at its best. It's going to look amazing. However, of course, it's busy. A lot of the properties are rented out, so we can't always get access. I would say the spring months or the autumn months are a great time to come and visit, because the weather's not so hot, and we've got better access to a lot of the properties. Don't come at Christmas. Don't come at Easter, because these are the two biggest holidays and people tend to be using the properties themselves. A lot of the agencies are closed, a lot of the developments are closed, so it's very hard to get access again. But the rest of the time, we don't have like the really high season of selling like as you do in England. Any time of the year is fine, but those are the two holidays that really make it difficult for us to view properties. And of course, the notaries will be closed. A lot of the legal firms are closed as well, so that makes it a little bit more difficult as well.
Yes, but we're not quite at the notaries yet. So we're looking at properties. If we find one that we like? What will we be paying? What's the process of making an offer?
Sure. So again, I have a document on all this which I can send you, but. First of all, as I say, if I've done my job properly, we find the property. If it's a resale second-hand property, if there's an offer to be made, we negotiate the price, we fix the price, and then you will be expected to pay a reservation fee of either €6,000 or 1% of the sales price, whichever is the greater. If it's a new development, an off-plan or a new development, there is no negotiation. New developers do not negotiate. They're selling fast and they don't need to negotiate, so they don't. Anyway, carrying on from that, if it's a resale property, a second-hand property, you will have around 2 weeks where the lawyers will exchange contacts, they'll exchange contracts and negotiate the contract. This is the private purchase contract, which outlines the actual sale. So between reservation and the private purchase contract, it's normally between 2 to 4 weeks. Then at that point, you're expected to pay 10% of the purchase price minus the reservation fee you've already paid. And then you agree a date for completion between yourselves, the lawyers, how much time do the owners need to get their personal belongings out, how long does the buyer need to completely finish signing off their mortgage, all sorts of reasons, and you agree a date and you work towards that date for completion. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, now we reach the kind of the business end, and I've seen a property I like, and I'm thinking about paying a reservation deposit. I'm thinking this is the time I should have spoken to a lawyer. So let's bring in Emma now. Should I be calling you at this point, or should I have already been speaking to you before I even got there?
from our point of view, the earlier that you want to speak to us is great, because it's really good to have a good feel of exactly what you want to do, what you want to achieve when you're actually going to be buying, because there's other things to take into consideration as to whether this is going to be a holiday home, whether it's an investment and you want to rent it out, whether it's somewhere that you're planning to live straight away or planning to live in the future, and all of those things that come around it. Obviously, just buying for a holiday home is the most simple application. If you're planning to rent it out as an investment, you need to make sure that it has a tourist license, that it is actually a property that you can do that with. And in terms of residency, then it's looking at the options of how you want to come to Spain, whether you'd be working, whether you'd be teleworking, or whether you would be retired and just be living on a non-lucrative visa. So all of these things are really nice to be able to cover with people beforehand. But it doesn't matter. I mean, if you've already gone that far down the line and you've gotten to the point of finding the property, then we can dive straight in at that point as well.
Okay, brilliant. I should have introduced you properly. So it's Emma Belgum from JLCA Lawyers, and now I think you're in the Costa Blanca, whereas Shirin's in the Costa del Sol, but you cover all of Spain.
That's right. That's right. I mean, JLCA AS Lawyers, we are a Spanish legal firm purely, that we only deal in Spanish law, although we do cover both civil and criminal, as well as extrajudicial conveyancing, inheritance and such. Our main office is based in Alicante. We do have an associate office in Madrid, but mostly it's all dealt with in Alicante. But from here, we cover the whole of Spain, including the Balearic and the Canary Islands. In addition, we also have offices in London and Miami.
Okay. So Shirin's explained that at the start of the process. Perhaps you can take us through the buying process from your point of view, and any highlighting any bits that our viewers need to know about in particular.
Well, it's very much the stages that Shirin explains. I mean, you're talking about, first of all, finding the property that you're interested in purchasing, making an offer, paying that first deposit. Depending on the autonomous region, the deposit can vary anywhere from 3,000 to 6,001% of the purchase price. Each autonomous area is slightly different and has different tax applications. So this is another thing that's important when you're looking for a property, that you can analyze exactly what additional costs there are on the purchase price depending on where you're buying. Following that, is the point where we would want to be involved as lawyers, because we will then be in contact with the estate agent or the seller or the seller's representation, and or the developer in the case of off-plan, and we start looking at the paperwork. These are basic things like checking that the property is registered in the person that's selling, checking the different types of registries, the main property registry against the cadastral registry, and additionally we'll also be looking with the local town hall to make sure there's no infractions, and that they've got all of the paperwork that they should have for the property. One of the key pieces that people have often heard of is the habitation certificate. It's also second occupation license or cedula. But this is a very important document as well. Where people haven't got it is a case of it could be written into the private purchase contract as a condition. In some cases it's important. Some people can continue without it, but it's really important to understand what the consequences of having it or not having it has. But all of these things we like to introduce into the private purchase contract. So if there's anything that hasn't already been provided at that point, and it does need to before the actual final sale goes through, then if there's a problem, then the buyer can pull out and get all of their money back. Okay. Following on from that, is obviously then the actual notary visit. This is one notary visit which we normally arrange to do by power of attorney, although the person can be there if they wish to be so. The signing will go ahead at that point. It's important to know there are differences if you're using a Spanish mortgage. One of the differences that you have two notary signings. You have to attend firstly to sign for the mortgage conditions, and then a couple of weeks later again for the actual purchase itself. But then following that purchase, we will then proceed with the next stages for you, which is to arrange payment of the notary fees to pick up the deed, payment of the property transfer tax, which is depending on the autonomous region, submit it to property registry so that's then inscribed into your name, and then we can set up all of the direct debits into your Spanish account. following and into your name.
Okay, brilliant. Now I'm going to be terribly un-British and just go straight into the point. How much will it cost and how long will it take?
It depends on what you're buying and where.
Okay.
As I say, the differences are massive, because as you sort of mentioned, in Andalusia, it's a 7% transfer tax. In Barcelona, Catalonia, it's 10%. If you go to the Canaries, 6.5. Whether you've got a mortgage or not changes it quite a lot, because there's 2 different notary visits. So although some people like to just put a percentage on as this is approximately what your costs to be, I think it's far better to have a breakdown of what you're actually planning to do and base the costs on that, because it's more realistic.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's answered one of our questions already. Okay, now, you know, modern families, we've got second marriages and we've got children from different relationships. Presumably, when you're buying, if you're not married, it's if you're buying as an unmarried couple, but you're each paying half. Presumably, there's some sort of that has some implications when you're buying.
Not when you're buying. Makes no
Okay.
difference when you're buying, because what effectively happens, if you've got a couple that are purchasing a property, then effectively 50% goes into one's name and 50% is in the other one's name. The only time that it really has an effect is if the worst happens, if someone was to pass away. Obviously, we would suggest that you have a Spanish will in place whenever you own a Spanish property to cover all these things. But the taxes then are different depending on whether you're married or whether you're a direct relation, how you were related. Obviously, in Andalusia, this is something they've really been tackling, because they've been slashing to almost no inheritance tax rates, but that's one side of things. Each different autonomous region has a different set of percentages and applications and relief depending on how you're related. So it's not in the purchase, it's what happens afterwards that it has the greatest effect. We can always, and this is something that we quite frequently do, is where people come explain their circumstances, and then we can tell them about all of the different options and what effects that might have.
Okay, great. So a question we're always asked, and this is one for Shirin too. Should we be getting a survey, and at what stage of the buying process does that happen? Is it before you make an offer, or presumably after you make an offer?
Are you asking me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, many clients like to have a survey done. Normally that's done on an individual freestanding villa or farm finca, as we call them. On apartments and townhouses, because they're within a community and normally have insurance, communal insurance, people don't really bother with surveys. But on a freestanding villa, then yeah, a lot of people do have it. Sometimes the sale is subject to a survey being done, and you know, a survey will always find something. They'll always find something. So it's just whether it's that drastic. Of course, if it's built on a river and it's moving and it's, you know, then yeah, of course, that's important to know. But Emma will clarify this, but a lot of the searches are done by the lawyers before you get to after reservation. A lot of the searches are done on the property, where it's built. Is it legal? Does it have the first, the actual building license, and does it have a first occupation license? And I'm talking Andalusia. That's proved quite important, because you can't rent a property short term without a first occupation license or a tourist license, because you need that for the tourist license. Somebody was asking, is the tourist license transferable? I believe that it is transferable from the owner to the buyer. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the research is done beforehand, but if you want a survey, of course, we have people that will do surveys, engineers, architects, and so on, to do that. Yeah. I
must admit, when I bought property in the UK, I thought, do we really need a survey? Isn't this all a bit of a scam? But clearly some buildings do, but most don't. So okay.
I think if an older property has been there for years and it stood solid and there's no cracks and it's, you know, then you kind of know it's okay. But I think to put your mind at rest, you know, you can do that. There is a cost, obviously, and there are two different types. I think Emma again will clarify this. There's different types of surveys in Spain. There are the very simple versions, and there are very in-depth surveys that can be done as well. So it really depends, you know, which way you want to go. But yeah.
Now, I suppose the big divide between buyers these days is whether they want to retire to Spain and will need a visa, and those who are buying a holiday home and will stay within the 90 days. What are you finding, Shireen? Are the retirees coming back, or did they never stop coming, or are more people buying holiday homes?
I think it's you know, it hasn't, all the things that have gone on, it really hasn't stopped people from wanting to come and live in Spain for the obvious reasons. We are being asked lots and lots of questions about the different types of visas, the different types of taxation. As Emma mentioned before, Andalusia, for example, is really attractive for people to come to at the moment because the tax laws have been, the tax limit, the amounts have been slashed completely. The transfer tax has gone, you know, reduced by a good 3%. You know, there's different reasons, but we are being asked a lot for people wanting to reside here and what the tax implications will be, what different types of visas they can apply for. And we were discussing it earlier on, the new nomad remote workers visa having come in and so on. So yeah, we're still getting lots of people coming. It's just they've got to work around what's happening at the moment.
Okay, because it's a big step, isn't it? If you're deciding whether to you know to buy in Spain, whether you're going to be able to retire there later, or whether, because I know lots of people buy a holiday home to start off with the idea that they'll gradually sort of semi-retire and then move out. So perhaps Emma could just take us through some of the main visa options and the kind of the rules, the 90-day rule, and then your visa options.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just sort of echoing over what you've just said, from our point of view, we've been processing all sorts of residency applications. So we're certainly seeing plenty of people still not just coming over here to buy, but coming over here to live, and in various different types of situations. But to sort of summarize the options or the main ones, obviously, first of all, you've got the tourist visa. And that's for your holiday homes, which means 90 in 180 days. In actual fact, since Brexit, I mean, before it was a maximum of 183, now it's a maximum of 180. So the allowance isn't that much different. The issue is that you can't put it all together. You have to have 90 in 180 days, then you have to have the gap, and then you can do the next ones. So you can't just put your two 90s together. And that's what causes people problems now. So you can't do the 6 months all in one go. If the 90 and 180 days isn't enough, then the only next step is residency. There isn't an interim. Now, in terms of residency, there's lots of options, but it definitely is more complicated because of Brexit. Unless you have a European passport, which we've had quite a lot of people that have got Irish descendancy and gained a passport that way, or other family members, and those can still be processed as under a European residency, but they still have to do a residency application. There are still things that they have to submit, go through to get that, and that includes means and such. Then the most popular one is the non-lucrative visa, and that is for people that are not planning to work in Spain. And that is the basis of having sufficient funds to cover yourself while you're living in Spain. And then you have a minimum of 183 days and you become a fiscal resident here. The other options in terms of work, there are three main ones. Digital nomad is the one that has literally just started going through now. That is the idea of teleworking from Spain. So you are employed by a company or self-employed to a company in another country outside of Spain, but you're living here. And that's specifically what it's designed for. Again, this is going to be showing that you have sufficient income based on, it's actually based on minimum wage, and that is either in savings or your salary based on where you're working. So the requisites of that is basically demonstrating that you're qualified to do the job specifically that you're doing, and that the company that you're working with is happy for it to be done on a teleworking basis. Obviously a lot more detail, but that's the crux. Work visas, there's two types. The main two types, and that is either that you have an employer that is offering you a position. That would be where that employer is going to provide paperwork to show why you, firstly, that you've got this contract, why you are specifically qualified for doing that type of work, and that it couldn't be offered locally. Or you've got the option of setting up your own company, which is then providing a business plan through the consulate for approval. Yeah, those are the main ones that we're going through at the moment.
Brilliant. Okay. Now we've got various questions coming in. I'm just this is a kind of obvious one. So thank you, Gilbert, for asking it, because they didn't really ask it. How do I go about viewing a property? There's a lot to unpack there, but
Yeah.
what would you answer Gilbert there?
Well, I mean, as I say, I would speak to us as early as possible. Explain to me what it is that you like. Explain to me your requirements and so on. And then, as I say, what I wanted to really get across to the clients is that when I say we have access to every single property that's for sale on the coast, I mean, we have, you know, you can send me a link from another agency's website and I will still be able to get all the information on that property, make the appointment for viewing, you know, and negotiate on your behalf. And we act as a property finder, and it's very much like the American system. It's a multi-listing service. So when you find an agent that you like to work with, you have trust in, and so on, and you know, have experience, let's say, you can throw me all the properties that you like from any website out there, and I will be able to find. What happens a lot, unfortunately, is you get a lot of agents that are advertising properties that were sold years ago, that don't exist, and are just so too good to be true. And what they're trying to do is to get you hooked in to actually inquire, and then they'll talk about something else and so on. Unfortunately, it does happen. It's called a hook. We hate that, but I can weed all that out for you as well. So I get clients, I spend half my time with emails from clients with links to all different Rightmove, Place in the Sun and so on, but half of them don't exist, or they were sold ages ago, and there are certain agents that do that. So I weed all those out for you, but the ones that are available and the price is correct, then I will get all the information out for you with the community fees, everything that you need to know. And if it's something that's of interest, we'll add it to the list. We'll compile a list together. I send you properties, you send me properties. And then by the time you've come out, I've organized all the viewing appointments. I know exactly where they are. I know which, you know, where to meet, but I'll pick you up from your hotel and I will organize everything for you. I'll make it so easy for you. You sit back, I'm driving, I know where I'm going. You're not going to get lost. You're not going to be meeting weirdos on the corner. I will have done everything for you. And we go through and we view. I normally have a little information sheet on each property for you, so you can write notes and so on. And we're there to answer any questions. And you don't have to worry about my fee. You don't pay me. The price that you see is what you pay, plus the costs. But my fee is not payable by you. It's paid by the vendor or the developer. But it's a really nice way to work, because I'm not going to be pulling you in a certain direction, because at the end of the day, I have access to everything. So it's a very simple, laid-back way of doing things, and you can take advantage of my experience. I can show you little nooks and crannies that you would never have found on your own, and that local knowledge, I suppose. I've been living here for so many years. I know the coast better than most.
Brilliant. Okay, I was going to ask about the fees, so I'm glad that you've answered that one already. Okay, working through the questions. Do I need a minimum income? This is from Tony. Do I need a minimum income to reside in Spain, and what level of income is required?
When it's this would be, I would say, please contact me so we can go through exactly what you're talking about, because that minimum income, where is that income from? Is it an income from investments? Is it income from pensions? Because if it's an income from work, then or if it's an income if it's a non-lucrative visa, if it's a digital nomad, then the amount that you have to have is different. But there is an amount that you do have to cover for each of them. Okay.
Now, okay, we've got a question from Darren for Danny. He says, is it better to drip feed an account? Should he do like 10,000 a month just to ease the risk?
I would probably say in a word, no, because one, that's going to be quite a time-consuming process to do it like that, and two, you're not necessarily going to be getting, you know, a better rate of exchange by doing that. You're also going to be taking on quite a lot of risk because ultimately you don't know where the exchange rate is going to be in a month. You know, you could be doing 10k this month, 10k next month. All of a sudden, the rates drop 2 or 3%, and you're getting, you know, a substantial amount less. So I would generally not sort of say to clients to do it that way. You know, we would tend to devise a plan where we're splitting it in different chunks. So, you know, if you're working with sort of a 200k budget, you know, we might be splitting that in half, doing a half hedge, leaving the rest of it to float in the market, see if the market goes up. So I'd probably say it's best, you know, speak to us and have a plan devised that's sort of more all-encompassing than just doing a sort of drip feed process, because yeah, A, from a time perspective, and B, from a cost perspective, we would always say that it's best to have a plan that's yeah, more, I suppose, all-encompassing than doing it like that.
Okay. Also, we've had questions from Giles and Mike about whether we are, firstly, is there a limit to FCA protection? And secondly, if we're covered by FSCS. But I think I can bypass both these by just saying that the money never actually ends up in Smart's account, does it? It's in a client account. It never goes into your account.
Correct. Yeah. So it's a segregated client account. It's different to the FSCS protection, which I believe is 80,000, which most sort of banks are protected by. We're, of course, you know, a lot different to that. We're not holding on to client funds for, you know, not nearly as long as banks often do, if at all. So often it's just going in, you know, in straight out. So basically, yeah, you know, it's a lot different to that FSCS. With the FCA, it is full 100% insurance. As you said, it never enters our holding accounts. It's, you know, that we have for our own sort of, you know, it's a totally separate client account that, as I say, totally separate from operating accounts. And that's the reason, yeah, the protection is different. It's FCA protection, which, as I say, is 100% insured. Yeah, totally ring-fenced account.
Okay. George has asked if you operate on a fixed fee or well, basically how do you make your money, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, again, obviously a question I get a lot from clients. So, you know, the way our sort of charge work is we make our money purely in the buying and selling of currency. So there's no fixed fee as such. So there's no actual fee for the transfers or, you know, for us sending your money out. The way we make our money is purely in the exchange rate spread. So essentially, you know, on any given day that you potentially book a transaction with us, there'll be the market exchange rate. You'll get a rate that's going to be sort of, you know, slightly below that. The difference between the two exchange rates is the sole fee for our service. That's, you know, that's the only way we keep the lights on at the company. It's just in that sort of, you know, exchange rate spread. So yeah, no one, again, fee transfers, you know, we charge an actual set fee. No one sort of fixed fee, but the rate, of course, fluctuates a lot, as does the trading rate. But that's the sole charge for our service. It's just in the spread. It's the exchange rate spread, basically.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. Marion has asked about what the golden visa is. So perhaps you could explain that, Emma.
Yeah, I realised that's the one I didn't mention. Just afterwards, the golden visa is a great option. Basically, it is where you have a minimum investment of 500,000 euros. And that's for the applicant. That has to be clear, no encumbrance mortgage on that. But that, as part of your visa, means that you have the right to work in Spain, to study in Spain, should you wish, and all of those people that you attach to it. But it's also got another advantage should you wish to do this, which is if you choose to be in Spain, you only have to be in Spain for 1 day per year to qualify for the visa, along with the rest of the requisites. But if you choose to be in Spain under 183 days, you still have the residency in Spain, which gives you the freedom of the Schengen area, but you are not fiscally resident in Spain. So, for example, you could remain fiscally resident in the UK with Spanish residency, giving you the freedom of the Schengen area, should you wish.
Okay. Question from George. I take it that lawyers will check for any outstanding debts on a property being bought.
Absolutely. This is to see if there's any debts, but in addition to that, we check against infractions against the property as well, just to make sure with the local town hall nothing's sitting there pending or registered against the property. But yes, making sure there's no debts against the property is a prime point.
Okay. Question for Susan. From Susan, I'm thinking probably for Shirin. If you are living in your own property in the UK and want to retire to a property in Spain, should you complete the sale of your UK property before you start to buy a Spanish property?
I presume they mean if they're using the funds from the sale of their UK property.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say you can start looking, but again, it really depends where your house is in the UK. If it's going to sell quickly, then I mean, for example, if you're buying a resale property, you're expected to pay a 10% within 2 to 4 weeks of reserving. So if you've got that sort of, it just depends time-wise. There's no chains as such in Spain because we have those stages of payment. We don't really have chains as such. People normally, as I say, have their funds in place before they buy. You can start looking, you can start educating yourself on the market and so on, and I can help do that. But it really depends how quickly your property sells and how quickly that money is in place to then pay over. If it's a new development where you have a much longer payment schedule, if you're looking at an early off-plan 2 years wait, 2.5 years wait for it, then of course you've got a different payment schedule altogether. So you've got a much longer period of time to pay for the property. But again, normally after 30 days after reserving, you have to pay between 20 and 30% of the sales price to sign contracts. So there is a big lump to pay at Lyon, even though you have longer to pay for the outstanding amount. Yeah, and off-plan is another subject which I'm sure a lot of people have got questions about. I'm very happy to answer at any time.
Well, yes. I'm just going to ask. We've had a few tax questions in. I'm not going to ask a tax question, I'm afraid, because we do have separate sessions for tax, and obviously it's a bit of a specialist area. Okay, one from Kev, and then I'm going to go on to. How can I ensure that community fees won't increase massively over a couple of years? Is there a maximum percentage that they can be increased each year? And can you see historical fees prior to making an offer?
I think that's a question for Emma, really.
I think
Emma,
it probably is.
Yeah.
Community fees.
As far as historical information, that's not a problem at all. Most of the communities have got a management company that we do get in contact with, and we can ask those kind of questions. In terms of how much they can charge, I mean, what you remember is that they are a community owners association. So if you're not happy with the management system, then it's a case of the community changing it or discussing with them if they're not happy. Yes, there will be increases as time goes on, and it will also depend on what's going on within your own individual community if you're having specific works done. But again, these are all subject to voting for all of the members. So it's a case of being involved with the community.
Okay. Now I've had a question. If I see a property, maybe one in the country, and I want to perhaps put a pool in or make some changes, I want to build an extension or something. What do you advise? Do you advise speaking to a lawyer first, or can you give a bit of advice on that, or can one apply for planning permission in advance? Does that take long?
You have to be very careful when you're looking at property. There's several types of properties, and for example, a plot of land in Spain that has a maximum capacity to build on. So and again, Emma will confirm what I'm saying, but if the property has maximized the square meters that they're allowed to build on that plot, there's no extending and so on. Even a pool needs permission to be built. So if it doesn't have one, you still have to get permission from the town hall to build a pool. if a property is built, the property has to be built within over 3 meters away from the boundary of the property of the plot. So there's several things that have to be in place for you to be able to, you know, for that property to be completely legal. And of course, Emma will look at that in total. But to do relevant works, unless you're expanding, I'm sure there's expanding the square meters, you can do, you know, improvements and so on. But again, if you go further inland, for example, a rustic plot of land, there's very little you can do on a rustic plot of land. You certainly can't just build a new property. It's very difficult to get planning permission for rustic land. And if any plot of land has maximized its square meters, you can't build any more than that. Yeah, not legally.
I was just to go on top of that. I mean, that is something when we talk to clients when they're planning on purchasing their property, I often do ask, have you got something in mind? So that if they are planning to buy that property with the idea of building another house on it or extending it or based on a pool, that we can check that before they go too far into the purchase. Because it is important to check with all of these different ones if it's possible to do, and if it is possible, to what extent.
Yeah, all our reservations are made subject to legal searches. So any reservation fee you pay over, if there are any legal issues with the property that cannot be rectified before completion, your money is completely refunded. So that's very important for people to know. We're not just taking money hoping to keep it. We're not interested in that. It's
Sure.
yeah, very important.
Okay, Shirin, tell me about mortgages. How easily available are they in Spain? Can you help with that?
Yeah, I think myself or Emma can help with that. We normally put you in contact either directly with the bank, or if you need a more creative sort of a mortgage broker, then we have mortgage brokers that specialize in Spanish mortgages as well. So it's very much dependent on what your situation is, self-employed, not self-employed, how complicated your paperwork is. As a non-resident, the maximum you will be able to get as a non-resident is 70%. So you will have to have that 30% deposit minimum plus all your buying costs in readily available funds. More often than not, at the moment, the banks are actually lending between 55 and 65%. So, and it's not just people say to me, "Oh, yeah, but I heard that I can get 100%." Well, the Spanish bank legally will not allow any bank to lend more than 70% to a non-resident. So it's just not possible. Okay, which has made the market slightly more safe, I would say, because back in the day when people were getting 110% mortgages, of course they were walking away, whereas now they've invested a big lump of money, so the market is a lot safer, I would say, in that sense.
Okay, and Danny, Smart Currency Exchange can have some sort of process for paying those mortgages, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. So often, you know, when clients have already purchased the property, they will have to pay off, you know, mortgage payments or even potentially sort of pension funds and things like that need to go across, you know, post purchase. So we have a couple of different options when it comes to that. You can have a fixed rate plan whereby we fix the exchange rate for you each month, so that those payments are going across at the same rate of exchange each month. You know, thereby guaranteeing you a fixed amount of euros that you receive for your pounds. So that's one option. You can have a sort of almost forward contract. We call it regular payment plan, RPP, for your mortgage payments. Same with pension payments. You know, you can have a system set up so that, say, you know, you're sending us £2,000 each month, you're getting 2,300 euros or whatever the rate's fixed in at. So that's fixed in. And then, of course, you have, you know, a different option whereby the amount in euros you're going to receive on the other end is going to fluctuate each month based on where the rate goes. So there's kind of a couple of different options that you can look at, that you know, you discuss with your account manager at the point of looking to set that up. It might depend on where the market's at the time of you discussing that as to whether you go down the fixed rate route, or if you want to just sort of have it set up on a, you know, on a flexi rate basis, so that rate's going to fluctuate each month. But yes, certainly something we can help with. And again, a couple of different options that you can look at that stage.
Excellent. Okay, we've had a question from Gilbert. Will I need health insurance, and how much is it? I'm a healthy 76-year-old. Who would like to answer that? I guess that's
Are you talking for residency?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So for non-resident, no, sorry, you answer.
I was to say for non-residents, you should have adequate travel insurance anyway. I mean, that would be typically what people would do. If you're talking about residency, yes, you do need full medical coverage. Everybody will need full medical coverage. However, it's important to know that the reciprocal agreement that was between the UK and Spain before Brexit still exists. What this means is people that are receiving a state pension and qualify for the S1 form in the UK can use this and register it in Spain, so that they have they use the national service here, and it's paid for by the UK, exactly the same as it was before. And this S1 form and this evidence that you've got that can be used in residency application as well.
Okay, and if you're just going there for a holiday home, then you can use your GHIC, can't you? Your which replaces the EHIC. Or would you not? Would you advise getting health insurance if you're just going regularly for a month or two?
I was to say, a lot of these covers now, in principle, that should cover you. But it's never a bad idea to have insurance if you're, your normal travel insurance. It's just from the point of view that if you're here for a short period of time, just a couple of weeks or so, and you need to see a doctor quite quickly, it can be a lot easier to do it in English at a private centre. But there is reciprocal coverage, which is to say it does still exist. But when it comes to long term, you're far better off either having full coverage through a medical policy through the S1 system, so that you're registered as a resident, or with your travel insurance.
Okay, great. We're nearing the end of our time. I just wanted to, I suppose, a big picture. We're talking about the simple steps. What are the mistakes that you see British people or international buyers making, and you think, oh my goodness, don't do that? Are there any sort of big picture mistakes, pitfalls that you see people walking towards and they should avoid? We'll start off with Shirin on that one.
I think for me is a lot of people have an idyllic idea about their life in Spain, and they want, a lot of people come over having read certain books, wanting a farm in the middle of nowhere. They want lots of land. They want this. First of all, the market, the pricing is important for you to understand the market and what prices things go for. But also, do you speak fluent Spanish? Do you imagine yourself living in the middle of nowhere, trying to get all this work done and so on, and the sort of lifestyle? You have to be very sure that you want that lifestyle. I see a lot of people thinking they want that, and actually don't speak any Spanish, have no intention of even learning it sometimes, and really struggling. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people. And then a lot of people wanting, what you mentioned before, buying a property where they think they can do loads of extensions and so on, and not being able to do that. That doesn't happen so much anymore, obviously, because we've got great legal advice. But really looking at the area and what it has to offer you and what you want to do and enjoy doing as well, your children, the schools, that sort of thing. It's just doing research. Some people are just not doing enough research, and ask us questions. We do have a reputation to keep. I've been working in real estate for 24 years. I have so many recommendations. We're passionate about our job and where we live and our life. So ask us the questions, ask us, whatever you want, and,
ask the questions and be realistic.
Just use somebody that for example, we invest in an office, we invest in proper training, we invest in a lot of things. There are a lot of agents that work from their front rooms. They're not anybody, the spider's web, as I would say, is really, not a great thing. Sometimes people coming across agents that just don't have the experience, and B, have more of an interest in selling you a certain thing than right. Giving you a broad spectrum of what's right for you. That's very important. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, Emma. So that same question to you. Any things any bear traps that we should avoid?
Karen, and I got to be honest, a lot is sort of echoing the same things that Shirin is doing. From our point of view, we always think it is good to have good legal advice, and you have the opportunity to get this, and ask the questions and listen to the advice. If you're looking for information, then look to the professionals that are qualified to give you that information. I mean, it's a terrible expression, but I've heard it so many times. I mean, do you ask your butcher if you've got a plumbing problem? It's ask the person who knows what they're talking about, because they're the ones who give you the right advice. And sometimes, I mean, it's great that you've got friends or people that you meet that are giving you advice on legal or residency issues, but they may not necessarily understand all of the background before it, and be given incorrect advice, which you're then making decisions upon. Get the information. It's free to have a chat. It's free to go through all of this information and work out what the best option is for you. So take advantage of it.
Can I just want to say one thing that Emma has reminded me of as well in the past, in that, you know, one of the mistakes, if you are looking to rent out a property short term, please make sure that A, the community allows short term rentals, and B, that it is possible to get that license that we mentioned before. But again, sort of just to put it in context, we get so many clients that say to us, oh, I was down the pub the other day, my mate told me that this, that, and the other, and so on. And even down here, you know, it's just the worst thing you can do is to listen to somebody that thinks they know everything. You know, I certainly wouldn't be in a pub giving advice, you know, to anyone.
No.
So yeah, Emma's right. It's so important to get the right person giving you the advice. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, I want to thank you all for your fantastic advice, and but I also want to mention our big virtual event, sort of an online property show, everything that you would want in a property show. Amazing properties, thousands of properties from Shirin on the Costa del Sol, but also agents from other areas too. Legal advice and currency advice, but also we'll have IFAs for your tax questions. And I'm just going to see if I can share the details of that. Let me see if I can put this in. Is this going to work? Right, I don't know if that is. Hang on. I'll join it now. Sorry about this. Okay, does that say we're sharing something? I believe you can now. Oh, someone's done it at the other end for me. Thank you. So, despite my technical incompetence, you can now register for Your Overseas Home Live and speak to all our experts. Spend a whole day with them, getting all your questions answered. So, thank you to all our viewers for watching this session. We wish you the best in your move overseas. We have all sorts of resources for you available on our website. We've also got links to our experts, and we will be sending you their contact details too. So thank you again, and happy property hunting in Spain. Good luck. Thank you. I don't know how I can switch this off now.